Good afternoon, everybody. This is the 957th episode of the, oh, no, it's not? No. Well, this is the next episode of the Sales Call Overhaul live show and podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jeremy Pope with The Closing Engine, of course, and this is my founder, Jason Canigan, my co-founder, Jason Canigan. And our guest today is Jonny Cooper of the Jonny Cooper Hates Marketing podcast, and his website is thesuccessparty.com. We're so excited to have you today, Jonny. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. I'm really pumped, and thanks for that introduction.
Well, it wasn't much of an introduction, was it? Jason, would you explain a little bit about Jonny, please?
Well, do you know what, Jeremy? It was even worse than you thought, because you got the name of my podcast wrong. It's
like
called
Jonny Hates Marketing.
Jonny Hates Marketing.
Now he's marketing. You made him market. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but Jonny is a British entrepreneur. He's also a talented piano player, international racing car driver, and man of mystery. I love that. For reals. He's actually been a race car driver, and we're going to talk about that. But these days, he's a business coach, and he's the founder of, as you mentioned, Jeremy, thesuccessparty.com. And that is all about helping professionals transform and find more of their ideal clients more easily. Sounds like it might be kind of a matchup with what we do, huh?
Oh boy, I sure hope that's relevant to today's topic.
So, long ago and far away, Jonny grew a business to 8 figures and exited. And since then, he's been supporting coaches, therapists, consultants, and whatnot who are serious about growing their practice and enjoying a life of effortless abundance. And he is the voice behind what I am calling the becoming legendary Jonny Hates Marketing Facebook group. So you can all go on to Facebook and look at Jonny Hates Marketing and join up there later. Yes, you did. And I've been a member for a while and appeared a couple of times, and I appreciate it. It's been fun. And he swears he really does hate marketing. He really, really, really does. So before we get into some questions with Jonny, Jeremy, I wanted you to talk about the Sales Call Overhaul. What's the deal?
Okay, so the Sales Call Overhaul, we want you to submit your call recordings to us. Go to URL link, go to website.com. Where should I be sending people? www.salescalloverhaul.com slash, is it sign up?
Sign up.
I think it's sign up. And you can submit your call recording for us. We will choose a winner each week to give away our $1,100 package to basically go through. We will transcribe, timestamp, give detailed notes on everything that happened in that sales call. We will grade it on 9 different areas of focus. We'll give you the concepts of why we talk about each of these things and basically build you a reference manual for your future sales calls. A lot of people, they have enough sales training, but now they need some feedback on what they're already doing. And so that's what this is about. And we would just love to have you on the show with us in that form. So go to salescalloverhaul.com/sign up, and you can submit a call for us there.
All right. Our guest next week is John Paramore, who is stepping in for a very ill fella who we were going to have on. Hopefully we'll get that guy back. But John is amazing at sourcing high-ticket salespeople who have got all their you-know-what together. And I'm sure he's going to have much to share with us. So let's get to Jonny. Jonny, when I asked you to be on the show and you gleefully accepted, which I appreciate very much, we had a quick chat about like what would be the best thing to talk about, and what we came up with was helping high-ticket salespeople increase their income, because it's something that you have personal experience with in, I'm presuming, the 8-figure business that you gracefully exited from. But I want to jump to race car driving first, because last night I went to a Damon John event, and then I got home just in time to catch the last little bit of some NASCAR qualifying racing that was going on. Yeah. So I'm still pumped up about that, because it's been like a 3-month break that we didn't get to watch any. So what have you learned from race car driving that is applicable to high ticket selling?
Well, yeah, I mean, without creating a fake analogy here, or trying to stretch any metaphors too much. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a mindset of success and achievement that underpins successful sports people, just as it does successful business people. And you kind of approach the task in the same way, which is how can I get better at this? Basically, how can I be the best version of myself that I can be? And I actually have an alter ego. My racing name is Skid Carrera.
Right.
So I actually don't race as Jonny. I race as Skid Carrera, which is a fast name to start with. And what I found with that is, as well as a little bit of a novelty, and people don't forget it. It builds a following. People love the idea of following Skid Carrera. It all sounds a bit exotic. And when the commentator's shouting out my name, even if I'm not leading a race, or even if there's been an absolute disastrous outcome and I'm in the wall, and he's shouting Skid Carrera across the racetrack, everybody remembers that. So next time you appear, they go, oh, yeah, you're Skid Carrera. So there's a bit of a kind of branding lesson there, I think. Call yourself something memorable, for Christ's sake. And the other thing about what can I bring across into business, into high ticket selling, is this thing about achievement. I'm never in a race just to take part, and anyone who says it's the taking part that counts is either lying or just a little bit confused about the reality of life. So this desire to win and looking at how you can optimize every part of your performance, to become a winner in motorsports or a high ticket seller, because as you guys know better than most, high ticket selling doesn't come naturally. It isn't something that happens by accident.
Right.
There are every little bit of your existence as a high ticket salesperson has to be optimized and has to be right. And
there are a lot of very mechanical things about any process that the public would think of as art, or would think of as nearly mystical. There are very few processes that are actually that have that level of mysticality to them from the inside. From watching Bob Ross do a painting on PBS in 30 minutes flat, to
that's amazing,
driving a race car, to being able to sell. It's really, there are many things you can optimize and tune in all of those processes.
Yeah, there is. I think talent is overrated as a concept as well.
There's a book by Jeff Colvin called that, and I love that book. Talent is overrated. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that from my other learnt skill of playing the piano. I mean, I consider the piano anywhere, anytime, and people will gather around and go, "Wow, you're amazing! You're so talented." Well, in actual fact, I've been playing this bloody, black and white monster at the front of the piano since I was 8 years old.
Right.
So, if I haven't got the hang of it by now,
you damn well better be talented by now.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see these, crazy kind of edge cases like, the 3-year-old Chinese classical pianist virtuoso, but that doesn't come along very often. And there's probably something else behind that as well, other than, whatever talent may or may not be. But I don't consider myself talented, but, I'm, as I say, I can get a reaction from playing the piano.
Yeah.
I can hold my own in a race car, and charge to the front like the best of them. But I don't think any of that's talent. I think it's just optimizing all the things that you need to do to make it work, to make it happen. And, to do that, you've got to understand what the things are first, haven't you? You've got to do kind of self-audit or kind of calibration process of, what are the things I need to do to be successful in this race car, or in this business, or, in this sale call, just to bring it back to you guys,
Yeah, 100% agreed.
I watch NASCAR stock car drivers through an entire season go through that
Yeah.
up and down of mindset and what they believe they can do and where they believe they should be at, and they get sloppy, and then they might refocus, and performance hangs on that.
Well, can I just show you something that may or may not impress you? Just bear with me 1 second. Right, hold on. So this is me in my NASCAR.
Nice.
Nice.
With Denny Hamlin's number.
This is Skid Carrera himself in my NASCAR.
11.
So we ran a European series for NASCARs, which was pretty tricky. This was back in 2004 to 2007 it lasted. And I was a pretty big ask because there's only 2 ovals in Europe, right? One's in Germany, it's called the Lausitz Ring, and down near Cologne. And the other one's in the UK, about 60 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And it's called Rockingham Motor Speedway, bizarrely.
Okay.
And it is actually in Rockingham. There's a village.
We have
called,
one of those.
I know you do, yeah, which is bizarre. And it's a 1.5 mile banked oval. When it opened in 2002, the Indy cars came over, you know, and it was, they lapped at like 222 miles an hour or something. We were lapping in those cars at about 153, something like that, 175 on the straightaways. But I did that for 3 seasons. And it was just the biggest thrill, Yeah.
I think 150 miles an hour is fast enough, huh? And yet they're going, oh, it's not slow enough with the restrictor plates, you know?
Yeah, it kept your attention. I mean, this is not a flat out circuit, not a restricted plate circuit. It's a 1.5 mile. The banking's only like 16 degrees or something. So you got to lift off and brake for a couple of the corners. So yeah, I guess 152. And we do like 65 lap races, just going like crazy for ages and ages and ages, and your neck will be flopped over by
which leads me to another point of being willing to pay the price. Same thing as the piano studying, right?
Definitely. I must say in recent years I've got a lot more into, you know, analyzing what makes somebody able to do something, what makes someone skillful at something, what makes a program successful or a process. And there's a great story actually. There's a guy called Dave Brailsford. I'm sure you guys haven't heard of him. I'll tell you who he is. He's the performance coach for the British Olympic cycling team.
Okay.
And up until like 6-7 years ago, the Brits sucked at cycling, right? We hadn't won a Tour de France for like decades, and you know, we got nowhere in the Olympics. And this Dave Brailsford came in with no previous experience of cycling. He was in some other field, I think in business actually. And he looked at the whole process of getting on a bike and cycling and winning. And he looked at optimizing every single thing. So he said, if I can find a 1% gain in the chain, the bicycle chain, right?
Yeah.
By reducing the friction in the joints, finding a new material, carbon, Teflon or something. I'm making this up, by the way. Then that will be important. And then if I can find another 1% in the front forks, and maybe we can find a different material to make the tires from, so we can get another 1% there. And then he looked at the riders, and he said, okay, these guys are not optimized, right? They're eating the wrong shit. They're not. Am I allowed to swear on this, by the way?
No.
Yeah, others have.
It's fine.
They're eating the wrong stuff, and they're not sleeping right. So he commissioned someone to study pillows, right? And he found them the optimum pillow that the riders could sleep on, so that they didn't get any stress on their neck. So the next day, their neck and their upper back was fully engaged, and they could cycle better, right? Anyway, he added all this stuff together, and within 18 months, these guys had won 3 back-to-back Tour de France. They got like 7 Olympic gold medals, right? And everybody was going, what are these guys doing? And it's now become the benchmark, obviously, because everyone else has cottoned onto it. And, you know, his process and secrets have bled out into other teams through, you know, personnel moving across and this kind of thing. So it's now become the new standard, you know. But I just thought it was really interesting. It fascinated me like hell, you know, and it made me deconstruct a lot of the stuff I was doing in business, you know, all the way up to my sales calls, and say, you know, can I find 1% here? Can I find 1% here? and adding together, you know what it's like in our business. If you can find a 5% improvement by improving 5 separate things by 1%, then you're probably going to earn a ton more money, aren't you?
If someone goes from a 10% close rate to a 15% close rate, well, that could be considered a 50% improvement by some measures, but still, there's an outsized improvement there because they're already paying for that appointment. I mean, they may be paying $140, $200 to get that appointment in the first place. So, I mean, every dollar saved there is a bottom line dollar, not a top line dollar. So
well, that 15% is an interesting number, actually, isn't it? Because is it 15 or 20? What I'm about to say is this: a coach of mine, that I was working with last year, because I told him that I was going to double my revenue in 2018 compared with 2017, and he said, "Well, here's how you do that: you get 25% more revenue per client. You get 25% more clients, and you increase your prices by 25%. So that's right. So the first thing is you sell your clients 25% more stuff.
Right.
The third thing is you find 25% more clients, and the third thing is you increase your prices by 25%. And the cumulative effect of 3 lots of 25% is you double the outcome. So
Jason and I were just talking about that earlier today, as a matter of fact.
So you're right. So if you can close 25% more people, then that's one of the 3 ticked off, isn't it?
Right. And just like the pit stops that we see, if you can shave a second off, right? And then they change the rules on them this year. So
we know that they've in Formula One, which is kind of the European open wheel series, even though they go to America, they've pretty much got pit stops down to the limit of human capability now. So so they're not allowed to refuel in Formula One, so they change the tires, right? So they put together this process which used to take like 3.5 seconds. So the driver would stop, and from brake to a halt to 4 new tires and moving away again was like 3.5, and that was like amazing. And then they ratcheted it down through the 2 seconds, and the benchmark is now 1.9 seconds. Right? So the driver comes in 70 miles an hour, stop, dump, off, 4 tires changed, 1.9 seconds. I reckon it's not going to be possible to get anything from that because of the speed that the humans can move the tires in and out.
They'll tear a muscle if they move any faster, kind of thing.
So
all the while, there's an official in a white suit standing there.
I think there's 22 people involved in it. 22 people. It's like choreography when you see it from above. So there's like three guys per corner, and then one in the front one. And it's all just, it's mind blowing. When you slow mo it, you could just go, wow, this guy's doing it.
Practice, practice, practice. Are they talented? They're practicing the heck out of it. It's real.
So I guess that there is a point where you can, I mean, is there a point where you can sit back and say, my sales call process is as optimized as it ever can be? I can't get any better. Where do you guys stand on that?
I think you can get to that point within the structure that you're in. Like, as long as you need to do a pit stop, then there can come to a point where, you can't get any faster. At some point, you reach the limit of incremental changes, and you have to have an innovative change. You have to have a leap of some type of structural change.
Step change.
But there are definitely limits to where any particular structure can take you. Absolutely. So,
paradigm shift.
One paradigm shift we're starting to see that I'm very pleased with is people starting to focus on their webinar attendance ratios.
Right.
And including a Facebook Messenger bot to remind their attendees to show up for the webinar. And they're boosting their show-up rates by 200 and 300% from what they were getting just with email reminders.
I told a story in one of my daily brain tattoos. If you guys are rabid subscribers, you might remember this. It was,
I love the name of that, by the way.
Like
brain tattoo. That's fantastic. I saw it and I literally burst out laughing.
I just like doing eye-catching stuff. This is the old Skid Carrera thing, isn't it? But this the story that might resonate with you on exactly that point. It's a true story. I was in a high street a few months back, and there was an elderly lady walking past, and she said to me, she had a letter in her hand, and she was holding it out. I knew what she was going to ask. She said, "Can you tell me the way to the post office?"
Mm-hmm.
And I started telling her. I said, "Yeah, just go down here for like, just 100 yards. You can see the gap there between those two shops." And she was going, I'm going, "Yeah, just turn left there and turn right." She was going, I could tell it wasn't sinking in. She wasn't listening. I said, "Don't worry. Come with me. I'm going that way anyway." And I walked into the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Took her around the corner, around the next corner. Opened the door for her. I said, "There you go. Yeah. And, have a great day." And she went, "Thank you so much, young man." Yeah, which is nice. And we closed the door. And my daily brain tattoo that sprung from that was the concept of, walking them to the door.
Yeah.
So it's no use meeting them at the end of the shopping mall and saying, "Okay, we've got a webinar and it's over there, and I'm right there, and I'll see you there a week on Thursday." You got to walk up to the door, walk them to the door. And we got all the tools to do it. I mean, these webinar jam allows you to send infinite number of reminders,
right,
count down, by the minute if you really wanted to. But you're absolutely right. That's what you got to do, Jeremy. And filling in the blanks between, them saying they've registered for the webinar and actually showing up is, it's so important, isn't it? And,
there are a lot of different places you can focus. Another thing that we see is when we come in and we start working for a new client, since we do done for you sales teams, you know that. Yeah. We come in and start working for a new client, and sometimes we have to de-celebritize the funnel a little bit. For marketing purposes, you want the celebrity effect, but then for sales purposes, you want to make sure that someone's not expecting to talk with the business owner. Right. So we need to build up the sales team and talk up the sales team so that they can be excited about getting on with the coach that they're getting on the phone with. And so that's another walk them to the door, or another kind of, it's a small paradigm shift, but it's one of those things that can make an 8%, 12% difference in close rate.
Wow.
By eliminating that kind of conversion barrier.
Yeah. No, I've had that. I've had that disappointment when I thought I was going to be talking with a celebrity, and I wasn't.
Yep.
Yeah, I had that last year. Yeah.
So Johnny, I want to dig into your financial services experience. Okay. You had a high number of people working for you or reporting to you at one point, and they were all salespeople, right? Of financial services.
Well, I mean, in the nature of FS, I'm sure it's the same in the States. You've got to support your salespeople, and you're not even allowed to call them salespeople these days. They're
right.
advisors. But yeah, we had about a sort of 2-to-1 ratio, I guess. So we had.
That's good.
Yeah, not quite that. We had 80 advisors at the peak and 120 support staff. So it was,
So quite a large organization here then.
Yeah, we had 200 people at eight offices around the country, which is pretty much saturation in the UK. It's a small country, as you know.
Right. Looking at their sales figures, the revenue that those folks brought in, I'm sure there was the typical 80-20 rule applied, and some people did much better than others. From what you saw, what was the number one determining factor of income from your firsthand experience witnessing these people?
There's a number of different things, actually. I think probably the most significant was the mindset of the individual, the relationship the individual had with money, their money tolerance, their understanding of what. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. The understanding of what money meant to them. And, we had people that we brought in as rookies who had, come from relatively low paid, ordinary kind of jobs. And they just regarded their time in financial services as another ordinary job. So they earned an ordinary salary, And we get some people who were, already high ticket salespeople in other industries, so they knew that they could earn 5 figures a month. And so they simply expected to do that in financial services. So that's the number one thing, their personal money tolerance, their view of what money meant to them. The other thing that we found when people got spectacularly good at it and started earning amazing amounts of money was that they'd understood that a commission-only role, which this was, meant that you could actually earn in relation to the value of your average client, the value of the wealth of your average client, and this is so linear in financial services. So I'll give you an example. We had a whole bunch of people who worked for us who would be happy dealing with school teachers. Some of them were formerly school teachers, so that was their playground. They felt comfortable working with other school teachers. And of course, the opportunity to help a school teacher in financial services is topping up their pension contributions, that kind of thing. Maybe every year doing a tax-free income. We call them an ISA in the UK. You can put 10 grand a year into it and not pay any tax on the returns. And those sort of things are great. And you could sit for 2 hours with a school teacher, sell them a 10 grand ISA. You earn 3% commission on that, so you earn 300 quid. Or you could say, I don't want to work with school teachers. I want to work with multimillionaires because I'll become a multimillionaire myself then, right?
Right.
And we had a couple of guys who really, really got this. I mean, this was literally 2 guys out of the 81, 82 people that we had working for us. And one of the guys set up his stall. He said, right, I am not going to work with anyone unless they have £1 million cash to invest and they have a net worth in excess of 3 million quid. Right? So he had a simple questionnaire, and every bit of his marketing invited only those people to enter his world, basically. Right. So he would sit with somebody for 3 hours, and instead of having 10 grand to invest, they'd have 1.2 million to invest. And guess what? He'd earn 3% of that.
Right.
So for his 3 hours work, he would earn £36,000 instead of £300, right? And he'd walk into the same office that the guy who just earned £300 was sitting. He'd fill out the same amount of paperwork as the guy who just earned £300. He'd submit it to the same person who processed the deal as the guy who just earned £300. At the end of the month, we'd write him a check for 36 grand and we'd write the other guy a check for 300 quid.
Yeah.
And the only difference was the guy who earned 36 grand made a decision that he was only going to deal with people who could earn 36 grand.
That's a scary thing for most people in sales and for most coaches, for most business owners, to limit themselves so carefully. It feels like a sacrifice. It feels like you're cutting off an arm instead of being able to really expand in one direction very solidly.
Well, this guy really did that. I mean, not literally cut his arm off, but he gave away his low-ticket clients to other people in the office who he liked. Yeah. Yep. And the other guys were going, do you want to do a commission share? And he go, no.
Take the hassle.
I don't care. I don't care. Because, well, you're right there. You're right there because the low-ticket clients in financial services, like in any industry, are the ones who take most of your time. They want more explanation, more support, more hand-holding, and they're more likely to complain.
Savvier clients are easier to deal with.
Yeah.
Very consistently across industries.
Yeah, I mean, financial services is an industry ripe with complaints. In fact, the regulators in any country invite complaints. They write to the clients and say, were you happy with the service you got? Were you satisfied? Did the advisor explain this? Did he explain this? And the only complaints we ever got were from the low-ticket clients. Nobody ever complained when we invested, their 500,000, their £1 million. Yeah.
They were all educated enough. So I got so excited about money tolerance because anybody who's followed me for any length of time know I talk about it.
Yeah,
one of his favorite topics.
And but I'm not exempt from it too, right? I'm constantly bouncing off my mindset off Jeremy and going, hey, how's it going? You know, how's the money tolerance over here, right? Is there something that's blocking me? And you never get rid of money tolerance. It's just the goalposts move around, right? You know, and you can steer the ship.
You can. I think you have good days and bad days as well. I mean, you know, I had a day last month when a client didn't pay deliberately, and another client didn't pay because their credit card got declined. And my money tolerance went way down there. I thought, shit, I need this one. But, I'm still here. And one of the things we talked about Jamie Smart earlier, one of my favorite authors, and he's been a coach of mine recently.
Nice.
And you know what he's taught me above all else, he's like a mindset guy, you know, advanced version of NLP sort of thing. And he's got into my head that, you know, whatever happens, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. And that there is never a client-shaped hole in my life.
That mindset has gotten me through so many horrible moments and days and etc.
What? You mean that our lives are not perfect and straight line roads to success every day? There are struggles?
You should have a graph on that board behind you, by the way, that just goes up, up.
All right. So how do you talk with high net worth individuals? I mean, how do you open the conversation?
No differently than you do with anyone else. I mean, you're talking about individuals who we're hoping to develop a coaching relationship with. The conversation is always the same. You know, I ask questions like, you know, if we were to work together, what would be your dream outcome?
Yep.
You know, if you came on this program for the next 90 days, what would make you say Jonny is a freaking genius at the end of it? What would have to happen?
Yeah.
And those sort of conversations are, you know, money neutral. You know, it doesn't matter whether they're incredibly wealthy and the outcome is going to make a huge difference to them, or they're just starting out. You know, the interaction, the engagement, and the conversation is pretty much the same. I think
I've found I make a mistake on that sometimes when I'm speaking with someone who seems like the perfect client, and they come in through. We get most of our business through referrals right now, so a lot of times people come in through slightly unusual avenues. But I'm less likely to make them go fill out the application because they seem so amazing.
Yeah,
and it hurts me every single time in my sales process,
doesn't it?
I am probably, when I don't get someone to fill out an application, I'm probably 30% as likely to create a relationship there, to get a new client out of that, 40%, something like that. But just following the process every time and not getting
wrapped up in what they say.
Not getting greedy or not getting insecure about it, or not getting hero worship or anything like that. Just staying focused. Look, I've got what they need, and otherwise we wouldn't be talking. So
no, that's really, really cool. I mean, you mentioned the P word there, process.
Yep.
And you know, I've always made a huge effort to understand my process and to document my process. And we did that with the FS business because we had to. You know, we created a kind of what I call a drop dead manual, so that if we weren't there tomorrow, that the business could still function. And the only way that could ever happen is that we A, understood the process, and B, wrote it down, you know, documented it, so that anybody else could follow it too. And even if you haven't got anybody else in your business, you should do that for yourself, because like you say, you know, if you deviate from a process, if a client convinces you to deviate from a process, you know, well, you know, great example in financial services, you start with a fact find, which is, you know, ours grew as the business grew, and we thought of more things to ask them, you know, so we ended up with like a 24-page fact find. There was a pain in the ass, you know, it took like an hour to go through it at speed. you know, maybe a couple of hours if there was a lot of conversation.
Right.
So you can imagine it was very tempting for some of the guys who were, you know, particularly the low ticket guys, where they just thought, oh, I'll just do a pension top up. They thought they knew what the client wanted and they just did it.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what? You know, the client would send in the 28-day notice and cancel it, and you know the engagement wasn't there. And I think that's kind of what you're saying, Jeremy. You know, if you shortcut it because you think this client that's across the table is an exception,
yep,
then it's always going to bite you in the ass. You know, there should be no
does.
exceptions. Your process is your process, isn't it?
That brings up an interesting thing about the lower ticket clients. The people who are selling low ticket are more likely to shortcut than the people selling high ticket.
Yeah.
I found that very consistently.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I believe that happens is because they cannot afford to spend as much time with their clients and with their prospects. The client, the prospect is not worth enough to them to be able to afford it. You have a time limit. You've got 168 hours a week to work if you don't eat, sleep, or spend time with your family.
Yes.
And so there's, I mean, you've got a hard limit on your time and you have to use it wisely. And whether we're charging like that or not, in the back of our minds, we can still feel that. We can still feel that. Am I using my time wisely or not? And it's a powerful motivator.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a huge advocate of time management, and my take on it is this: that pretty much any form of exchanging time for money is a senseless exchange, because here's the thing, right? Money is an infinite resource. You know, wherever your money tolerance is, whatever your money tolerance is, there's an infinite supply of money in the world, and you can prove this easily by just asking the question. I spent $100 on my groceries this week. That's not the same $100 I'm going to spend on my groceries next week. It's a different $100, right? And as long as I live, there'll be another $100, another 1,000. Yeah, so there's an infinite supply of money. But conversely, time is a finite resource, both on a micro level and a macro level. So the micro level, as you said, 168 hours a week. It isn't, of course, it's 40, isn't it, or 50, or whatever you prefer to work. So that's going to run out really quick.
Yep.
What's going to run out, definitely for sure, for all of us, is the macro amount of time we've got. You know, the 28,000 days or something that we spend on this glorious planet. That's going to run out sometime, isn't it?
Yep.
So therefore, exchanging that finite resource for money, which is an infinite resource, is not a fair exchange of value, and nobody should ever do that. Nobody can pay me enough for an hour that, you know, it's ever going to be worth either of us having that conversation. So, you know, charging for the value that you give is a whole different thing, isn't it? You know, a whole nother case.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So
that's an interesting perspective. I can see how that keeps you in a healthy place. I like that.
So, Johnny, how, in your experience, do high net worth prospects determine who they should work with? What are the, okay, this guy's legit signals?
Like, how do they vet providers?
Well, they can be a bit more demanding or not. I mean, one of the characteristics of, you know, a high ticket client, by definition, is that they're probably wealthy, or they're wealthier than a low ticket client by definition. You know, that's a fairly banal statement. And people who've made money, people who are wealthy, people who are doing okay, have often done so by being able to make quick decisions and correct decisions.
Yeah.
So, you know, I find that people who've really got their act together and are running a business with a ton of people and making a load of money for themselves, they make 100 important decisions a day really quick. So it doesn't have to be a bigger challenge getting them to agree to something. They've just got to make an instantaneous call that you're the person they want to work with. And I think, you know, the more you can create a buzz around yourself as a brand, the more you can get other people talking about you, you know, in social proof, the more you can create your transition from expert to authority, the more people are likely to go, yeah, I'll work with this guy. And high ticket people will do that more quickly and more willingly than low ticket people who are, spending their last dollar with you. So,
now, a lot of time, I want to make clear for our listeners and viewers that when I say high ticket, a lot of times what I'm talking about is something that is a big decision for this type of market. So I'm not talking so much about the individual that's buying a lot of times. This time, right now, we are talking about the type of person who is a high net worth individual, who is a high income individual, and we're selling something that's proportionally sized to that person. But that's
yeah, I mean,
so we're using it two different ways, and I want to be clear on that. But this is good.
Okay. Now I know, Johnny, you've got a secret method, which you'd like to share, about what high ticket sellers can be doing on their marketing side that they often miss or just don't know about or ignore or forget about, that will help them attract or get connected with increasingly high net worth prospects.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I touched on in the previous conversation just now, that just making yourself an authority, so moving from expert to authority, and all the nice fun stuff that you can do around that, like writing a book. Most of us have got a book in us. In fact, these daily brain tattoos that you're so fond of, Jeremy, I'm actually collating those into my first book, which will be out in the next 10 weeks, something like that.
Excellent.
So writing a book, makes you seen as an authority. Talking, lots of public events, doing live broadcasts, all the good stuff like this with you guys. It's all this little notches up, these little 1% in moving you from a self-proclaimed expert to a recognized authority, and that massively helps. But I think what Jason was digging at in the question, my secret weapon, right, in getting ever more high ticket clients, ever wealthier clients. And I evolved this a couple of years ago. I've been massively testing it. And one of my clients has had a spectacular effect with it. And I'll tell you about him so you can appreciate the story. He's a mind coach, and he's based in Gujarat in India. And he does a lot of the kind of self-awareness stuff, and he does stuff around meditation. He occasionally meditates the hell out of me over Zoom, believe it or not, from India, which is quite an experience. But he was working with troubled teenagers. And he was finding his troubled teenagers from local schools and colleges, and they were being referred by their teachers and sometimes by their parents. And he wasn't getting paid very much doing that because, the parents were paying for it, and they just saw it as another kind of expense of bringing their kids up, kind of thing. So I encouraged him, when we started working together, to start talking with the parents, because without laboring the point too much, if the kids are screwed up and need a bit of therapy, then perhaps that's cascading down from the family situation. So he looked at this a bit, and he did start working with mothers and fathers and parents. We rebranded him as a successful family coach. So he then started working with
I like that.
the family as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Making the family function better as a unit,
Right.
more successful. And one of the things he found was that in talking with the parents, and particularly the husband, because it's a very patriarchal society in India, husband would often have a business they'd be running. He'd be spending all these working days there. His relationship with his wife would be fractious. She'd be kind of chained to the stove, while he was at work morning till night. And as he brought the family together, he started to get more under the skin of the husbands. And he started realizing that quite a few of these husbands, and he had 5 or 6 of these families he was coaching, quite a few of them were seriously wealthy. They had big businesses. So he said, well, I don't know where to go from here. I need more people like this. I said, well, here's what you do then. You identify the point of maximum excitement, what I call the PME, right? When the client is as energized and thrilled with you and your service as he's ever going to be.
I call that the glow point. where they're glowing. They're just so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The glow point, or the point of maximum excitement. Glow point's easy to say, actually. It's a bit of a mouthful. Point of maximum excitement, the PME. So having identified that, which is usually at the end of a session where he's got a great outcome and there's been a light bulb moment, literally a glow moment.
Right.
I said, why do you say to the guy, I've really enjoyed working with you. I know we've had an impact, and I'd like to work with more people like you. So who is the wealthiest, most screwed up person that you know?
Yeah.
Who's the wealthiest, most screwed up person that you know? And that does two things. It anchors in their mind that you want somebody who's got some money. Well, just three things, actually. So money and wealth. Second thing is that they're screwed up, or they're in a bit of a mess, or there's something they need help with. And the third thing is person. So it's not a referral pitch saying, here's a bit of paper, write down 5 names or something,
right?
Which they never do. This is intelligent referrals. This is saying, who is the most screwed up wealthy person you know? And if you ask that question of anybody, the magic happens. Firstly, they'll name somebody wealthier than they are, because we never feel that we're wealthy, however much money we've got. So asking that of somebody who's earning 10K a month, they'll think of somebody earning 100. And, a millionaire will think of a multi-millionaire that he knows. And the other great thing about it is, the bit of magic is that they'll come up with somebody, because you said, give me one person. Who's the person you know right now? And he called me in between our sessions. It was an impromptu call, and I said, hey, how's it going? He said, you won't believe it. He said, but I've just got referred to the wealthiest guy in Surat. This guy is an unbelievable businessman. He's got like 8 businesses. And I'm going to go and see him next week. And this has just been rolling and rolling and rolling. And of course, when he asked that guy who's the wealthiest person he knew, at worst, he's going to recommend a peer who's also a multi-millionaire. At best, he's going to recommend somebody who's, sky high wealth, a billionaire kind of thing. So that's my secret sauce, basically. Whenever you're with a client, ask them, you don't have to put the screwed up bit in, it's not always applicable, but who is the wealthiest person you know who could benefit from what I do? And bingo, they'll tell you, they'll name somebody rich.
And it keeps increasing the quality of your network.
It's increasing all the time.
I love it.
Every time you ask that, they'll name somebody wealthier than them.
That's very cool.
What a value bomb on that bombshell. we can't get any better than that, can we, guys?
That's pretty fantastic. I had one other question for you that was about coaches specifically. There are a lot. So I'm from the hypnosis and coaching counseling world. A while back, I was a clinical hypnotist, and I trained about 100 hypnotists.
I'm not going to look into your eyes anymore this session now.
That's fine. It's too late at this point. Yeah. So we found very consistently that people with that helper mindset, that caregiver kind of mindset, many of them were afraid of charging high prices. And I see this online all the time, people asking questions around this. And a lot of times I see that fear be hidden behind something else, behind an ego builder, like a desire for authenticity, for instance. Like they mask it. You work with coaches to help get rid of this kind of thing. I mean, it all comes back down to mindset, as you say. What kind of things do you do with coaches to help them realize it and deal with that, so they can move into the prices that they really don't believe they can charge, so they can increase their money tolerance range and move into that where they can afford to spend really good time with their clients?
Yeah, well, you've really hit on something important there and very significant. There's a whole breed of kind of, I think they call themselves heart-centered entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's a common term.
Whose primary mission seems to be to help as many people as they can. And I see people in other groups posting in my group, saying, okay, I've challenged myself, I set myself a quest. I want to coach 30 people before the end of the month. anybody up for it, you know, and you get a free hour, you know, you sign up. And you're right, it's about that, you know, just wanting to give. I mean, here's how I look at it. And we go through a process where I ask them to think about the most generous and most impactful people in the world.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk is a little bit private about his philanthropy, but we know that he's giving away hundreds of millions. We know for a fact that Bill and Melinda Gates are vaccinating Africa, right? That would be impossible for practically any other human that's ever walked the planet, apart from Bill Gates, right? We know that Warren Buffett's doing the same. He's going to give away 99% of his wealth, he says, you know, to causes. I think a powerful analogy is, you know, when you get on a plane and the cabin crew walks you through the safety things, you probably know what's coming. They say, you know, when we're just about to hit the ground, you're going to get this nice little comforting thing drop out of the ceiling. It's called an oxygen mask, right? And if they were telling the truth, they'd tell you that, you know, nobody ever survives whether you got a mask on or not. But, you know, and they say if you
oxygen is a flame retardant, right?
Yeah, of course it is. It's well known. But the next thing they say is, if you're traveling with an infant or someone dependent on you, put your own mask on first. Right? Put your own mask on first, because if you're gasping for air, you're not going to be much use to them. They're going to die too, right? And if we bring this back into heart-centered coaching, heart-centered / no charge coaching,
unfortunately,
you're in this position where you're gasping for air, so you're no use to your client, right? And not only will they very quickly see that you have no real authority and power behind what you're saying, but because you're charging them nothing or very, very little, it comes back to what we were saying earlier. They don't value the advice.
Right.
They won't act on it. They won't do anything about it. It makes no difference to them after the coaching call whether or not they do anything. They'll just stay there. And the whole thing is kind of this, you know, virtuous cesspit of nothing going on, kind of thing. And, you know, as we've already identified, once you start pushing up your prices, wonderful things happen, because you find the right clients, you find people who are engaged with you, and you'll get a result. And, you know, the more results you get, obviously, the better you practice and the more you can grow. So I think, you know, put your own mask on first is good. And if you want another one-liner, something that I use from time to time is, money doesn't buy you happiness. And this is quite, you know, this is behind, I'm sure, some people's reluctance to charge enough for stuff, is to think, well, you know, I've got what I want, you know, having more money is not going to make me happy, and money's the root of all evil, and this sort of stuff. Yeah, money doesn't buy you happiness, but poverty buys you nothing.
Yeah.
There is no virtue in poverty. There is no virtue in poverty. And it doesn't make you a better coach being skint. In fact, exactly the opposite, for all the reasons we've spoken about. So, you know, put your own mask on first, you know, just look after yourself. Think, what can this practice do for me? Why am I doing this? You know, what's it all about? And it doesn't take long, to be fair, to get people out of that mindset. And what does it, as effectively as anything, as you can imagine, is working with them to find their first high ticket client. And once they do that, they know it's possible, and they just get it. They go, yeah, I could do that again now. I could do that again.
Specialize in that.
Yeah. I mean, it is very rewarding getting people from 0 clients to 1 or 2 clients. Now, I could actually say it's easier to do that than to work with somebody who's already got hundreds of clients. You know, it's certainly a different type of challenge, isn't it? And it takes more digging.
Not a common sentiment.
Yeah, and it takes more digging to find out what you can do. You remember the Dave Brailsford story earlier about the cycling thing? I mean, these guys were already brilliant cyclists. They just weren't good enough to win the world championships, you know. So he had to work really hard to find the 1%. When you're working with a coach who hasn't got any clients, you can find 100%.
Exactly. Got a lot more room to go digging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jonny. I really appreciate you being on, and you've shared some really powerful stuff today. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's been my pleasure, and it's a lovely way to end the week for me, just hanging out with people. And I love podcasts. I love live broadcasts because, you know, you're very much in the moment, and all the piles of crap which are still on the to-do list are just put aside, just forgotten about. We're like in a little bubble, aren't we? All pals together, just having a chat. So fantastic! I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for joining us in our Sales Call Overhaul bubble, and we'll see you around. Right.
He's Jeremy Pope. I'm Jason Canigan. Our guest today has been Jonny Cooper. Next week, our guest will be John Paramore, and our thanks to Emson, our producer.
Thank you.